Hello everyone, and welcome back to another in the Model Railway series videos. Now today I'm going to cover something that most of you know how to do already, so video is probably not for you, but some people have mentioned in the comments in the past, oh, can I do some more basic how-to videos? How do we do this? How do we do that? Because a lot of people are starting out and some things are taken for granted that people know. So we're going to cover ballasting today, and more specifically how I tackle ballasting. And it's not an original idea. I've borrowed this from many other people, but I just want to run through it in full so you guys see how to do it and see that it's not actually a scary thing at all. Okay, so here we are with two of my latest boards for the NTMA modular. Now these are NTMA spec curve boards that are available on Grange and Hodder's website. So if you go on there and type in NTMA, these should come up. And basically we went to them because they have curve boards, but they're the wrong radius, wrong size, and also the wrong depth. So the curve boards you can buy on the site are to 400mm depth, whereas we want 600mm, so it conforms with the rest of our modular boards. And we also, I believe they did 60-degree bends, so essentially you'd put three of them together to make a 180-degree bend. Of course, we didn't want to do that. We only want to be able to go through 90 degrees. So these are actually 45 degrees, and you can see they're split down the middle. The join here, it is bolted together. It actually looks worse in person than what it does on the camera, but yeah, not 100% satisfied with how they've gone together. Essentially, these bits here that slot in, they're fine this end, but as you work down the curve, the radius that this is cut to, they don't come to the full depth. But anyway, that's slightly getting off track. So ballasting, first of all, let's go through what you are going to need. So obvious start is ballast. So we have the Woodland Scenic medium ballast B1394. Now this is something that as a club we've standardized on and said all the main line is going to be with this ballast, and it just allows us to have a more uniform look to all of the modules. Now there is variance on it because, for example, my original Outwell basin, I didn't weather the ballast at all, whereas on my newer board, which is the windmill board, for those of you that haven't seen it, it had its full debut at the Slough and Windsor show a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we standardised on that ballast, so I will put that there as the first thing that you're going to need. The second thing is something to stick it down, and I'm a big proponent of the 50-50 water and glue method. So you can see I've got a bottle, it says art and craft, it's not art and craft PVA in there. I have used that kind of PVA in the past, but I find that it's a bit touch and go how solid it will dry. So I don't actually have the bottle with me because it is a big 5 litre bottle that I use, but I use a proper sort of builder's DIY PVA. So I've already filled my bottle half full with that. Got some water that we're going to mix it with, and just some washing up liquid. Doesn't have to be anything special, as you can see. This is Lidl's own brand, I believe it is. Doesn't matter on the scent, doesn't matter on the colour. You just need a couple of drops for it. And one other critical thing is isopropyl alcohol. Now, I have it in a squirty bottle here, and I buy this from my workplace in 5-litre drums again. Just economy of scale, it works out so much better to do that than buy these smaller bottles that you really can pay a lot for. Now, you can get around all of this by using something like Woodland Scenic's Ballast Bond. I have no personal experience of it, but if you really want to take out as many steps as possible the first time you ballast, it's a perfectly valid option. I, for one, won't look down on anyone that does that. Just personally, the amount of ballasting that I'm ending up doing on all of the boards and layouts I'm building, this is much sort of economical and value-friendly option. So next thing, something to put the ballast down with. So we have just a dessert spoon here. Now this one I keep for modelling. I don't return it to the kitchen afterwards because it just gets glue and all sorts of it. It doesn't matter. You could wash it and I'm sure you could get it perfectly clean, but I have plenty of spoons. Last essential item is a brush of some kind. Doesn't have to be anything special. The only thing I would say is you don't want it too stiff that if you touch the ballast with it, it pings it half a mile across the room. And you don't want something so soft it's just going to sort of brush over the ballast and not really do anything. And lastly, optional is a skewer. And this can be helpful just for removing odd bits of ballast off of the sleepers. But as we go through, I'll show you how 99% of that should be removed anyway. Okay, let's get our glue mixed up first of all. So as I say, just going to... It doesn't matter which order you do this in actually. So we just want a few drops of the washing up liquid in there. Doesn't have to be too precise, you don't need a lot, it's just to help break up surface tension. What you don't want is so much that it's foaming up everywhere, and this is making a mess, so you know what, let's just pour that in like a normal human being. Now, where I'm getting water on the board, but don't worry, I will sort that in a moment. Right, so pop the lid on, and we're just going to give that a good shake, get that all completely mixed through. The water dry down quick, bottom at it. So yeah, shouldn't take long to mix it. PVA is water based anyway, so essentially all you're doing is, well, watering it down. Simple as that really. Okay, so next step, let's just move that out of the way, is going to take the lid off. Going to grab nice decent dollop, and all I'm going to do is just come along and place some of the ballast. And you'll notice I'm being quite generous, but don't worry about that because it will disappear into our sleepers. Now, next step is just to come along and do the same along the front edge, and likewise with the back edge. So all of the cork that the track's laid on is going to want to be covered by a nice ballast shoulder when we're finished. Right, I'm going to go and finish laying out the ballast and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so my ballast is all spread out nicely, and all we're going to do is take our brush and just start to brush it into place. Just running the brush along the top sleepers, pushing the ballast where we need to go. And if we need to top up some areas, that's fine, we can come back and do that. So as you can see, just brushing along, and don't worry about trying to get all of the ballast off the sleepers at this stage, because the next step is going to do that so simply and easy for us. You may find, if you've gone a bit gung-ho like I have, that you end up with a load of ballast at the end. But don't worry, something like a stocking over the end of a hoover, you can just suck that up, or in my case I have a dedicated hoover that I'll show you in a moment that I picked up off Temu of all places, and that just gets used for modelling, so I'll be able to hoover up the excess ballast that's been swept off the end of the board and reuse it. So how are we looking? Just try and spread out. So I need a bit more here on the back side. The trouble with using a cork roll for curve boards is that the cork doesn't necessarily mould to where you want it. And when you come to lay down your track, you find that the curvature of the track doesn't quite go where you think it's supposed to, and it's more prevalent on this sideboard, to be honest. And just gently keep sweeping until it's looking pretty much there. Now the next step, and I've actually got the wrong brush for this, but the next step is to literally come along and tap on the tops of the rails. Now you want to make sure you're using something wooden or soft-ish, plastic maybe. Do not be hitting it with anything metallic or anything. You do not want to be damaging the rail head. And yeah, I'm going to tamp all this down and then come back to you in a second. Okay, having tamped down the track, I'm actually going to come through and add more ballast again. And the reason for that is you have gaps underneath the tracks between the sleepers and around sleepers where during the tamping process you're going to get quite a bit of ballast actually disappear down. And I made this mistake on my previous board where I just went, oh yeah, that'll be fine, and started gluing, and the glue took the ballast even more, and I suddenly realised I had huge pockets. And then, being an idiot, I made the problem even worse because I tried adding more ballast while the glue was wet, which then led to issues where it clumped and just pulled out, and it was a disaster. So if you do have that, wait for everything to dry and then try and put extra ballast in. Don't, as soon as you wet it, that is it. Don't try and do any more. So as you can see, I'm just coming along, adding a bit more, only between the sleeves this time. You'd have seen me put some at the back here. That is just to build up that shoulder where it needs to be. So just get a little more on here. Start from that end. You won't need a lot. And again, just brush it in a bit and then go for a second tap. And what you'll find is, although it won't work here at the ends because, well, we use the Railtech alignment pieces, and of course they are solid, so ballast will not disappear between them. But on the rest of this, just going to run my brush to make it fairly even, and again start tamping, and you'll soon see that the sleepers are reappearing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again, and then we should be ready for sticking it down. Whilst we're on it, I did mention to you the small vacuum I have. It looks more like a hairdryer. It's just USB-C powered, and as you can see, ideal for clearing up ballast. Anyway, I'm going to go and tamp this down once more, and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so ballast is in place. It's not perfect by any means. And it's certainly to NCMA standards, he says. He's just trying to even up some spots there. Yes, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, as one other well-known YouTuber likes to say. And we're going to go with it. So next up is our IPA. Now, the initial sprays of this you want to do quite far away. Don't worry about the board. Not had any issues with boards warping or anything from overexposure. But what you don't want to do is come in and start spraying sort of this angle, because you're just going to blast everything everywhere. The idea is to get it completely soaked with the IPA, so then it's settled before you apply the glue. So just gonna say I'm doing this from about 12 to 15 inches, and once you get it initially wet, you can then come down and get it from closer quarters. But let's say those initial sprays, you want to be doing it from from quite high up. And then, as I say, once you've got it largely in place, you can come down and you're at less risk of disturbing the ballast. And you want to give it quite a good coating. So we want the rails to be absolutely shining and the ballast to have taken on this darker colour. Like so. Next comes the moment of truth. This is the most nerve-wracking part. So what you want is, you can either use a pipette, you can use, I've seen people use syringes for like medicine syringes, quite wide ends. I find medicine syringes can be too violent and you can accidentally blast your ballast everywhere. Pipettes, they're okay. The downside for that is you don't get much in it, so you're going to be refilling it a lot. Whereas I go with a bottle like this that allows me to pour it quite slowly, which you can see, just letting this drip out onto my ballast. You can put a little pressure on the bottle to help it come out, but again, you don't want to be absolutely crushing your bottle and having the glue go everywhere. So just liberally coat everything. Don't worry about getting it on the tracks. You're going to be able to clean that off easily enough afterwards. And the sleepers, once this dries, you'll not see it. So the glue is going to dry completely clear and you're going to be absolutely fine. Just going to continue applying my glue, and I'm aware that we're still recording and you can't actually see anything at the moment. So I will cut off here and I'm going to continue applying, and I will come back with a quick shot once it's completely covered, just so you can see how you don't have to be too precious. Although one thing you have to do is make sure you don't do what I've just done there, which is apply it a little too hard and it has just washed out the ballast. So if I can just bring you over to this area here, so that's what you are trying to avoid. So yeah, really just let the glue do the work. Gravity can take this, and I will be back with you in a second. Okay, so you can see I've got a little carried away in places, and you can see it's a rough line there where the IPA has been. As I say, it will dry out, it's nothing to worry about, and there we go. If you do feel like the glue's not going in quite as well as you'd hope or expect, don't be afraid to give it another blast of the IPA, wet it down a bit more. The glue and the IPA will mix and it will be absolutely fine. Now, I do have some thick glue there and thick glue there, but just using the stick, you can sort of remove that. I mentioned previously about having cocktail stick. This is optional. You can manipulate the ballast to a certain extent. I realise I'm not actually showing you that on camera. There we go. So you can manipulate it to an extent, but I'd say not to go overboard with that. Just let it do its thing, let it dry. If you have some stray ballast, flick it off when it's dry. And there we go. That is how we tackle ballasting. Now, that section there, I may be able to use the back of the spoon to manipulate it a bit and bring it back in where I want it, but like so. But you can always come and touch up, it's not an issue. And apart from having a look when it's a bit drier, that is going to be it for now. All right, it's been about 2 hours now, and I just thought I'd show you what it's looking like now. Now, this is purposeful. If you go look at a real heritage railway, or any railway really, the ballast isn't uniform, and it won't all be nice and neat. So, tried to show that here. For the most part, it's all nice and clean, as you can see. And I just want to show you what it's going to look like in a couple of hours after applying the glue. So you can see just, if my finger, it's a wet bit there, a little bit still on the sleeper there, and you're going to be tempted to touch it. And I'm going to tell you right now, do not touch it. Give it a minimum of 24 hours before you start shifting it around and moving it and touching it and trying to do whatever. If you are going to clean off the tracks, honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about it. When the glue is dry, it does come off quite easily, and you are going to be able to just go along and remove that. You can use something like Pico track rubber. I'm not a fan of those personally. I prefer a nice smooth block of wood. I find that that is ideal, just rubbed across the tracks, because obviously the wood is softer than the metal. You're not going to scratch it. Any kind of abrasive cleaner can put micro scratches in the track and lead to more of a dirt build-up over time, which means you're going to be cleaning your track more often. So my preferred method is an IPA soaked rag that's wrapped around a block of wood. So nice and tight, put a hair bubble around it just to attach it, and I rub it up and down the tracks when everything's completely dry, that is. So obviously if you're ballasting the morning of a show, you are going to struggle. But if you're watching this, you're going to have your own ideas. It's probably not your first rodeo, and all of this video isn't going to be much use to you anyway, because you're already going to know what you're doing. But for those of you at home that this is the first time you've ever tried something like this, hopefully this video has been helpful. Let me know down in the comments if you find it useful, if there's something else you'd like me to cover, and we'll go from there. That said, thanks very much for watching, guys, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.